I'm Elizabeth Falkner. I'm a chef, and I've been in the business for 25 years. I've also been on a lot of food television. I've written 2 cookbooks, and I've just finished writing a memoir that should come out soon. Somebody said to me early on, you should never trust a skinny chef, and I was always like, that's not really true. I've always been very physically active. I played soccer for a long time. As a chef of a restaurant, it's such a physical job. If I didn't work out and take care of my body, I wouldn't perform as well in restaurants. I first discovered I had some kind of skin disease when I was playing soccer. I thought I was just getting shin guard rashes or something like that. Sweating a lot playing soccer, I just thought, I've got these red kind of lesions on my legs. And then I started getting it so bad when I was owning my own restaurants and cooking all the time on the line, behind the fire. And then I started getting really bad lesions on my hands. And it just really was so uncomfortable because, as you can imagine, being a chef, I'm using my hands all the time. And it was so ugly and also just painful. I was under a lot of pressure, and I finally went to the doctor, and she said, oh, you have atopic dermatitis. I've, had this diagnosis that I've been aware of for, like 20 plus years. And everything that I've put on top of my skin is not really helping. I mean, it's temporary, maybe. Not even always, but it doesn't really take it away. It's always still coming back. It's always there. So I think that emotionally, it's really hard for me. It probably is for everybody because I'm kind of always irritated about it. Like I'm not totally conscious about it all the time, but to have a disease that's constantly making you scratch, it makes me emotional. This clearly isn't something just on the outside. I mean, I've been trying to treat it for this long, on my skin, and it must be something coming from inside. Like, I've spent years trying to come up with the right formula or alchemy for me to tolerate, manage this disease. And it's taken me a long time. It's actually taken me out of my restaurant business context to somewhat manage it. But it's like something that is not just physically affecting you, but psychologically affecting you for the rest of your life. I joined the Understand AD campaign because I have atopic dermatitis, and I'm hoping to help bring more awareness to this disease because it's very comforting for me to know that I can actually have a discussion about this disease because I don't think people really around me have really understood just how painful it is. This disease is more than skin deep, and having this disease gets in the way, but try not to let it get in the way of doing things that you love to do.
Hey. Hi, what a great way to start off our, what is it, Tuesday? Wednesday,
yes.
Wednesday. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth.
Thanks.
And to talk
Thanks
about
for
the
having me.
Understand AD campaign. So let's kick it off by asking you how you became involved in it and why it's important to you.
Well, this campaign is great because it's a disease I got diagnosed with like 20 years ago, and I didn't even know.
You were running like full throttle, working.
I had a Citizen Cake restaurant in San Francisco, restaurant and pastry shop, and I had these terrible rashes on my legs and started getting on my hands, and I used to think it was actually shin guard rashes.
Because you play soccer.
Right, because I was playing soccer but running around like crazy. And then I got diagnosed with this moderate to severe atopic dermatitis. And some people nobody really talked about it either. It was sort of like, oh, you have a skin rash and you'll be fine. And I got prescribed, different ointments and lotions and stuff to try, but they didn't really work for me. And it just was so bad for so many years and so painful. And I think the harder part about it is that psychologically, it really, you're a really itchy, scratchy, nervous kind of person, and I just kind of bulldozed through it, being the boss and not really thinking about it. And I would try to take care of it, but it was just so hard in a restaurant situation because you're next to fire and you've got your hands running underwater and putting your hands in gloves all the time and trying to explain it and whatever. It's also just kind of painful psychologically because you're just, it looks funny.
Because you feel like crap.
Yeah, and you don't want people to think there's something really wrong with you.
And also, you're in a food situation, so I'm sure scratching your legs or your arms while you're preparing a souffle is probably not the visual
you
people
do
want.
all kinds of like things, like just kind of standing there and going like that. And even on television stuff, I've been having a breakout and just have to kind of deal with it. Luckily, I haven't had it on my hands for a long time, but that was probably at its worst.
So, what did you do about it?
Well, I've always been a very physically active person. We were talking about playing soccer, and I did that till I was 38, and then I started doing mixed martial arts stuff and more yoga and trying to think.
I know that
Okay,
you're a certified
probably need to
instructor
get a little
now.
more grounded, and right. And then training for the marathon is definitely helping. I don't work in restaurants full time anymore, and that has definitely calmed it down. I still get flare-ups, but it's definitely not as extreme as it has
So
been.
you think you think, like I'm trying to be a little sarcastic here, you think working 80 hours a week in a kitchen might have had something to do with it?
I think it really just makes it worse. And I think, they just recently did a survey of like 500 people who've kind of shared their stories. There's more information on the understandad.com website about my story and other people's stories, like you guys saw. And it's what's good about this whole campaign is that, I was not fully aware of how many people were suffering from it, but it's like over 1.6 million adults in America. And because people just kind of think it's a little rash, this is a much more serious disease. It's like you have everybody. There's no one trigger point. There's lots of different trigger points. So yeah, the stress of running around in a restaurant makes it just even worse. But like I have tried so many different kinds of lotions and potions. I kind of have my own little mixtures and tinctures, and I try to figure out what's causing it. But I never really know exactly what it is. It's different for everybody. But in this survey, they found out that like 23 to 28% of people have sort of I think it's the psychological part that's more intriguing to me. It's like they've had are just anxious or really stressed out. It compounds the stress. That's the best way to describe it. And it's like it is a really itchy, burning kind of rash, or it's not a rash. I can't explain it like that, but it's if you've never had it, it's just painful. I always describe it like having like a bunch of little volcanoes under my skin, and I never know when they're going to react.
So you never, even to this day, know exactly what triggers it?
No, but I think that doing exercising a lot, being somewhat conscious about what I'm eating, like I am training for the New York Marathon, and quite honestly, it's been really good for me because it's such an extreme goal to run that much. It's like, thank God I don't have a full-time job because my full-time job is training for the marathon. And then, and I am, because of that too, really conscious about what I'm eating. I always have been. I've never been, people always say never trust a skinny chef, and I've always said that's not true. And I think, just really feeling how food is affecting me every day has helped kind of bring that stress level down.
So what are you eating now? Take me through like a typical, I don't want to say week because that would probably take too long, but like a typical day when you're running, like 5 miles, 10 miles?
Right, so I kind of get on a regular routine, but I do travel a lot, and I cook at a lot of different food and wine festivals and events and stuff. And so that will throw me off a little bit. I just came off of a cruise ship, which is why I sound so congested. And, you can't just eat I don't eat like crazy on a cruise ship, but it's one of my jobs is actually on the culinary council for a cruise line. So I go on once in a while and, I'm talking about food because I'm teaching cooking classes and all that stuff. But then, so my diet will go a little bit off. And, but on a regular basis, I'll have I love making my own protein smoothie stuff. And when I do that, it's usually just almond or cashew milk or coconut milk, and then maybe some kind of nut butter. I love almond butter. I'll throw in some hemp protein or chia and flax and stuff like that. And then I always have these, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of almond extract, maybe a little bit of salt and ice, and good to go. Maybe some dates. Dates are so good because they have that potassium instead of bananas, and they're not as filling. And then
I thought you were going to say chocolate milk and raspberries, but no.
No. And I'm not into decadent. We were talking about chocolate a little bit. I do eat chocolate stuff, but I'm so particular about what I want, and I know I have a pastry chef background and a savory chef background, but I've never been somebody who's I can't wait to get my hands on a piece of bread pudding. That's just absolutely not me.
Sadly, that is me.
I like trying other people's desserts, but usually they're too sweet, and I've never been that person that makes super sweet stuff. Even in cupcakes, I used to have a place called Citizen Cupcake in San Francisco, and the only reason why we even came up with that name was because it was just a miniature version of Citizen Cake, and then when I was like, oh, I guess we have to make cupcakes. Well, then we better make really cool cupcakes.
Wait, so So smoothie for breakfast. What about lunch and dinner?
I love having different salads with different textures. I really do love nuts. I eat a lot of peanuts and almonds, and I love the crunchy stuff. I love texture in food. And then I love seasonal fruit and vegetables, and I just a little touch of Parmesan, or I kind of keep it simple though. And then and of course I'll eat like fish and chicken mostly, sometimes beef and lamb. But right now I'm just being really conscious about like what's going in and how that's making me feel, how it's making me run and perform.
So when you eat, what is the thing that you respond to the most when you're running? In terms of food, like what fuels you the most? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's just being more consistent. It's not like I would say like if I kind of go off for a couple days of having pizza and then maybe going to a restaurant and somebody sends me extra food stuff, and then I'm like, I don't feel so good like running the next couple days. But if I've been on like 5 days of like being very consistent about what I'm eating, and that's not too much, not too bulky, not too much fat.
That actually makes total sense. Not too many carbs. Oh no, carbs are good, right? When you're running, like
carbs are fine, yeah. but it's just being like not every day, loading up on it.
And I'm sure that's also helped with the dermatitis, right? Like eating clean. That's got to have an impact.
I think eating clean and also, but not. I think if people make this mistake with all kinds of diseases and diets and stuff too, of not allowing yourself to indulge sometimes. So it's not like I don't eat ice cream or chocolate chip cookies once in a while. Those are my favorite thing. But if I have it, I won't like the next day or like 3 days later. I'm not going to eat dessert. If I feel like I'm in a mood to just constantly have sweet, I'll usually just have dark chocolate.
Now let's talk about your new show.
My new show.
Your new show, Man versus Master.
Oh, I love that. I don't even know if that's out yet, but cool.
It's 2017, but we can preview it.
Right. Well, it was really fun. It's actually really. It actually was a really cool.
I assume you're the
concept.
master.
And yeah, I'm one of the masters. I don't like the title so much, but I was like, why do we have to call it Man versus Masters?
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, why can't it be like people
There's another female
versus,
chef too.
Yeah.
There's lots of female chef contestants. It's different than most of the shows that we've seen so far. It's a little more. It's a different setting. It doesn't feel so game showy. But I think you guys will like it. It's fun.
So it's regular people cooking or competing against master chefs like yourself.
It's not really regular. They are definitely cooks. They have experience. It's not a home cook.
Oh, so it's not a home cook. So it's someone who like isn't familiar with the restaurant situation.
No, they're definitely like sous chefs and cooks, but there's a twist in it. But I can't tell you about all that.
All right. Do you ever get nervous when you're filming?
It's taken me years. I used to get really nervous. I think probably having that atopic dermatitis is part of that anxiousness too. It's sort of a self-conscious feeling, and it's not something that I've ever really thought I have to be focused on. But I've definitely, I have that. I feel like kind of a twitchy person, and I think it's because of that disease. So on television, it's taken me a long time to get used to being comfortable in it. But I look at it now, like, especially, and also the competitions. I mean, it's crazy, it's intense, and there's been many times where they're like, chef, introduce your dish, and I'm like, I can't talk right now. But I still have to kind of get over it. But now I just feel like it's such a fleeting moment. It's fun. I love playing. Like I've played soccer for, 20 whatever years, 30 years, something like that, and it reminds me of playing soccer and culinary coming together. And it's like I love it as a sport. I think people look at those shows as like, oh, they're so crazy and so evil, and our food world is messed up because of these kind of shows. It's not really cooking. But the truth is, it's cooking on the fly, and I embrace that because I find myself coming up with stuff that I would never think of.
I didn't realize that people slam those shows. I think they're fascinating because when you get home from work and you've got 20 minutes to make dinner and you open your refrigerator, you better come up with something real quick.
Yeah, but I think people just kind of have it like a sport in the background. Feels like ESPN, but it's the Food Network.
To each his own, man. What's your favorite? Or no, let me rephrase that question. Of all the dishes that you've cooked on the fly on TV, which one are you most proud of that you think really encapsulated your personality?
Oh my gosh, but I've been on like over 30 competition shows.
No, I'm not putting you on the spot or anything.
The Next Iron Chef was such a big deal for me. Coming in second place against Jeffrey, And I think that final meal was pretty kick-ass. And most people, quite honestly, it's been like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years since we shot that, and I still have somebody come up to me every day, no matter where I am, and say, I think you should have won that.
Recap the meal.
We had the altar of every holiday thing ingredient on the table. So if you really want me to tell you about every dish, we made some pumpkin or squash agnolotti with Brussels sprouts and prosciutto and goat cheese. We made these cod fritters with black garlic, kind of tomato confit or something like that. And then we made I made a beef Wellington. I had the whole roast of beef, and I cut out the eye of it and put it in homemade Blitz puff pastry, which nobody's really ever done on that show. Most people, when they've done some kind of Wellington, have used a frozen pastry. We did like a bordelaise sauce with that, and we did like beets and horseradish all on that dish. I'd made a cranberry ginger sorbet with kaffir lime and
Good
tarragon
God.
gel.
Oh my God.
I made 2 desserts. They got edited into one. Well, you know.
How many people?
It was a can of whoop ass. I knew I had to pull it all out.
How many people come up to you and say that you inspire them to go into cooking?
A lot of people come up. Yeah, and it'll be like professional cooks, people starting out in culinary school, and just home cooks too. It's really sweet. And now I'm experiencing generations. So like my mom loves you, and I've watched you a lot. Or like my kid who's 10 watches you, and it's like wow. And they're like they always say we always love what you make. You're so creative, and that is so great for me to hear because it's really not all about winning. It's more about I found this other stage to express my food stuff on.
So last question before we hit our audience. If I was coming to your house for dinner tonight and you did not have a chance to go grocery shopping, you were just simply going to base it what's in your pantry and fridge, what would you make for me? And I have no dietary issues.
What's in my fridge, like right now? Okay. Let's see. I could probably... I'm trying to think about what kind of protein I might have. I'd probably have to make... Well, I've got just some mixed greens and some apples from the green market. And I know I have some pecans, and I have some different cheeses. I'd probably make you something with Gruyere because I have some recipes I have to use Gruyere for soon. So I might make you a little salad of that, just with some lemon juice, a little
Accepted.
Yes. A little lemon juice, and maybe a little champagne vinegar, and probably a little pecan oil and olive oil in that. And then I'd probably end up making you some handmade pasta because I don't think I really have a lot of I have a lot of sauces that I've made over the year, that I have frozen, so I might have like some kind of yummy pesto. Yeah, maybe kind of just that.
So what time?
I think I have after 9.
Great, perfect. All right, guys, you're the witnesses. She's making me homemade pasta. And now to our audience.
Awesome. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
So I have a million questions to ask you, but I'm going to break it down to 2. First, they're total opposites. One, I want to know, what is a good replacement for someone wanting to wean off sugar? And 2, my sister has atopic dermatitis, and she's about 15. What's a good tip for her as far as, taking care of herself at such a young age and being aware of what she has?
She's only 15?
Yeah.
Wow.
I remember her very young. It would, come here, and she'll, be itching at it the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, it's a really hard disease because when you scratch it, it makes it worse. But it's almost impossible not to scratch it, and it's really frustrating. It's like that's probably the best adjective for it. It's just frustrating. And you think there's something wrong with you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I would say, man, 15. I don't even know if I was having any symptoms then. I really didn't start getting it until my 20s. But I would say probably trying to get into some yoga kind of stuff even at that age, because there's something that's just really grounding about your breath and breathing and just trying to come into some kind of calmer state. Yoga is just one example. It could be running. It could be a lot of things that make you just get out of your body. And I'm not talking about alternative substances. I'm talking about real, getting it out of your body. And exercise has always seemed to be something that I feel like is really good. And then, you just have to kind of try different stuff. There's sometimes temporarily, working with a dermatologist. I learned a lot recently just by talking to Dr. Day on this campaign about dermatology today and this disease today. When I was diagnosed 20 years ago, it was really different because they always just gave you steroid something. And then I was like, I don't want to do that. So I would, as some kind of alchemist chef, kind of make my own little tinctures and stuff and try different lotions and oils and whatever. I have found a really good product for myself called neem oil. And it says on the thing, I got it at like a health food store. And just look that up because that actually has been really kind of calming in a lot of ways too. It doesn't take it away, but it definitely it's got a really great fragrance. I think it has a little rose and sandalwood. I think Epsom salt bath is really good also. And then just trying to watch what you're eating. I definitely think that like fried fast food stuff is not happening for anybody for many reasons.
And what about a sugar substitute?
Oh, sugar substitute, yeah. You mean you just want to not use any sugar in baking and kind of stuff like that? I'm a big fan of dates. I think for years I've used to, even at my bakery, we used to make a Thanksgiving tart with pecans, and mostly dates as the sugar and a little bit of honey, but it wasn't like your typical pecan pie. That was so sweet. Sometimes I get a piece of pie from people, and I'm like, really? Like, it's just way too much sugar. And to be quite honest with you, being a pastry chef for so long, it makes you kind of cracked out. I was at an event last night for kids with cancer, and one of my friends was doing one of the desserts, and he goes, "We're serving diabetes on a plate." I'm like, oh, God, that's just not good. These guys are famous ice cream makers here, but they're hilarious. But I would say, looking at like dates, because that's a really good sweetener, but it's just fruit itself. And then I like agave and honey and molasses. I'll go to those before I use a lot of sugar. But I also, in a lot of recipes, you can take sugar out, like cut it in half. I mean, when I first started being a pastry chef, I was like, I'm just going to try this with like half the sugar, and because I don't want to get slapped around with sugar. I like tasting the ingredient. Mm-hmm.
Next question, please.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
Kind of jumping off that, I think it's so cool that you're a chef who actually promotes a healthy lifestyle. But I was wondering, what's one food item or meal that if you see on a menu or someone makes that you just can't resist?
Well, I don't think it's like necessarily a decadent thing, although once some slice shops, the pizza is pretty decadent, like Prince Street Pizza. It's got like a lot of olive oil in it, but it's like crunchy good, and I love pizza. I don't eat it all the time, but I try to find stuff that's not too oily and nasty, And also, I'm so picky about the dough and its fermentation time. So if it's just like it's been made that morning, you can it's so flat you can't digest it as easily. It's not good. And then, like if I'm craving certain cookies, I kind of like cookies a lot these days. But if I'm craving them, I feel like I have to make it. I can't just go out and buy it. So that's kind of a good trick for myself too, because after I make a batch of dough, I'll eat a couple cookies, and I'm like, okay, I need to give these away to the doorman, or my neighbors. And yeah, I like ice cream too, but I just don't eat. I don't go crazy with it. Maybe once a month.
And last question, please.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. Who are your culinary idols?
Oh my gosh, almost every chef around the world is my culinary idol, because especially people that are in it for a long time, it takes so much stamina. I'm constantly as starstruck as people are sometimes around me with other chef friends of mine, just because they're so amazing and they keep going and making stuff happen, and it's just so exciting to watch people perform as chefs for especially a longer period of time, because they might evolve or they might have an empire, and just see how they do that.
And where can we learn more about the program?
Yeah, so we have my story and some other people, especially with this new survey and some of the you can see how it's really affecting a lot of people at understandad.com.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thanks for having me.